It seems like with each passing day, we get a new piece of information on Jonathan Kuminga and his future with the Golden State Warriors. And we have a new update today, straight from Warriors owner Joe Lacob, who we know is very, very fond of Jonathan Kuminga. We'll get into all of what Lacob had to say in just a moment as he sat down with Tim Kawakami. But first, make sure you are subscribed because we are covering the Jonathan Kuminga free agency saga like nobody else on YouTube. And we are very close to our next milestone of 96,000 subscribers. Only 13 subs away, so I need 13 diehard Golden State Warriors fans to go down below and hit that big red sub button right now for daily Golden State Warriors content. All right, let's start with this, as in Kawakami's kind of write-up of the interview where he sat down with Warriors owner Joe Lacob. One of the first things that he mentioned was what many Warriors fans were kind of upset by early on in the offseason when the Golden State Valkyries debuted for the first time in the WNBA, and who did Joe Lacob have sitting next to him during that game? That was Jonathan Kuminga. Now, when you're talking about a first ever game for a WNBA franchise, if you're the owner of the brother NBA team, wouldn't you want to have somebody next to you who is going to be a part of the organization long term? That's what a lot of Warriors fans thought, and then Joe Lacob went and said to Kawakami that you shouldn't read too much into it. Now, I don't know how much I believe that. I think there was definitely some messaging that came from Joe Lacob in that. But as far as the courtside appearance from JK, Lacob says don't read too much into it. But here is where things get juicy. Lacob saying this: look, it's difficult. You got close to all your players. So yeah, it probably would be difficult to lose someone who has been here for 4 years. He's a part of our organization and a great guy. But this is a business, and we have to do the best thing to build a team. And he's a free agent. He gets to choose. He's restricted, so we have that on our side. But it's business. We just have to see how it goes. Let's see what happens. And for me, it feels like this is the first time that Joe Lacob has even mentioned or alluded to the thought of losing Jonathan Kuminga in free agency this offseason. And look, I don't really think that there is much of a possibility that Kuminga ends up just straight up signing an offer sheet and the Warriors do not match because, one, there aren't a lot of teams in this league that have the room to sign Kuminga to a big offer sheet like that. And two, Joe Lacob probably just doesn't want to give Kuminga up for all that much. And here's what he had to say after that initial quote. He said, "It would take a lot for me not to match, for us not to match. But again, we have to look at what makes our team best, and that's really up to Mike Dunleavy to make those decisions and to recommend ownership what to do. It's going to play out pretty soon. You won't have to wait too much longer." And I think this is really the juicy quote from Joe Lacob. There's a couple of things to unpack with what he said. One, he said, firstly, for me to match. Interesting. Obviously, it's Joe Lacob's money that's being thrown around there in free agency. So naturally, I guess it makes sense that he said that. But then he quickly corrected himself and said, the decision is up to Mike Dunleavy to recommend what ownership should sign off on with the final signature. So how involved is Joe Lacob going to be in the decision-making process on whether or not to keep Jonathan Kuminga this offseason? That's a big question for Warriors fans because think about a couple of years ago when Joe Lacob was a very big proponent of James Wiseman in Golden State. They ended up trading him away, and Lacob wasn't really in the decision-making process there as he was a huge fan. I would even say a bigger fan of Wiseman's than he actually is of Kuminga's right now. So that is definitely something of note. When they made that deal for a guy that Lacob loves, they didn't really involve him too much in the decision-making process, or else he might still be in Golden State. And then the second thing we have to unpack is it's going to play out very soon. Now, the overwhelming kind of notion from NBA insiders that this offseason is going to be kind of sped up, and a lot of things are going to happen before the draft. But with Kuminga, he's a free agent, and that does not open until June 30th. So there isn't going to be much 2025 draft capital going around in any potential Jonathan Kuminga sign-in trade. So that honestly limits a lot as well, as this is a very talented draft, and a lot of teams are going to want guys in that first round. But at the end of the day, it seems like the most likely outcome for the Warriors is that Kuminga does come back in free agency this offseason. And Bobby Marks of ESPN put out a contract projection a couple of days ago that is as follows: 3 years, $81 million, and it is a 2+1 deal. So it'll be a player option in that third season. So if Kuminga outplays or underplays his contract value, then there will be an out in that third year, whether it's for him there at that player option spot. And look, I get it. I understand that the likelihood is pretty high that Kuminga ends up coming back. But for those of you who aren't exactly huge fans of them like myself, that doesn't mean that he's going to be a part of the team long term. Remember what Monty said on the Dubs Talk Live podcast a couple of days ago? He said it doesn't mean that he's going to be a long-term answer if they do re-sign him, that they just potentially move him later. Because what seems pretty clear in talking to people that even people who are JK backers within the organization don't see him a guy that's going to lead them to championships. So there isn't a ton of faith in Kuminga to kind of carry the mantle into the next era of Warriors basketball past Curry, Draymond, and Jimmy Butler now. So they could look to trade him down the line, and I get the understanding of that because, like, you want to get 100% of the value back when you're trading a player away. Like, in this specific instance with Kuminga, they can't do that. If they do a sign and trade with him as a restricted free agent, they can only take back 50% of the new contract value in the first year that he gets from a new team. So say he gets $25 million from somebody, Golden State can only take back $12.5 million in contract value there. So I get it. If you trade him down the line come next season before the trade deadline, maybe in December when he becomes eligible, you get whatever contract amount that you kind of sign him to this offseason. So if it's $27 million, you can go out there and get a $27 million player. But honestly, even if you end up getting lesser value this offseason in a sign and trade, or I guess at least a lesser contract value, I would rather make that move than go into next season with more dysfunction, more uncertainty around Jonathan Kuminga's role. Like, yeah, Steve Kerr said that he would be a featured player more often, and he would incorporate him into lineups next to Jimmy Butler and next to Draymond Green early on and often in the season. But look, Steve Kerr's word in May and June is not the Bible when it comes to what's going to happen in October. So there is absolutely still uncertainty within Jonathan Kuminga's role, even if he gets a contract extension. So I'm kind of out on that, being the case this offseason. I would much, much rather have the team that you're going to head into in October be the team that you're going to head into the NBA playoffs with come April and May. So as far as the Kuminga sign and trade goes, we do have a couple of teams that have some reported interest. Now, one maybe a little bit more than the other, as the Miami Heat are incredibly focused on going out there and trading for Kevin Durant right now. But a report came out that Kuminga is viewed as a fallback option for Miami. So kind of fingers crossed that KD doesn't end up in the Bay Area, so we have another option, another competitor for a trade offer for Kuminga. Also, the Chicago Bulls, who we've kind of been theorizing at least, or assuming would be a team of interest in the Kuminga kind of sweepstakes this summer. There's a bunch of players on their books that would fit in to a Warriors sign and trade here, or Golden State could potentially include more than just Kuminga in a trade package. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But first, get hooked up with this fresh deal that you see in the link at the bottom of your screen, chatsports.com/Curry City. You can get last year's, yeah, I know, it's last year's jersey, but this thing is fresh and it's 50% off. How often do you see a Steph Curry jersey half off in the middle of the summer? Yeah, not too often. So go take advantage of this awesome deal and click this link that's in the comment section and description of today's video, chatsports.com/Curry City. Get hooked up with a Curry City jersey today. All right, this came out, and I want to very much preface with I don't know how reliable all these guys are, and I'm also not so sure how groundbreaking of a report this is anyway. But from Pasha here, saying that the Golden State Warriors have internally discussed packaging Moses Moody in sign and trade scenarios with Jonathan Kuminga, sources tell me, and Rob Murrows, who runs the collective and social media reporting kind of page, Ball Report X on Twitter, and they're kind of new. They've been reporting on Golden State stuff mostly, but now they're trying to take it kind of league-wide. Again, I'm not so sure how reliable these guys are, but I don't think it's necessarily groundbreaking information that is 100% untrue. It would make sense that Golden State would think about including Moses Moody in a Jonathan Kuminga sign and trade because you can get a better player back for those two contracts combined. Moses Moody next season in the first year of his contract extension makes $11.5 million. So if you add that into a Kuminga sign and trade package, you're looking at, maybe a $20 to $25 million player now that you can get back in a trade this offseason. And look, I get it. You're not going to be able to see out Moses Moody's extension for even just the first year if you end up dealing him. And I'm not so sure that that's what Golden State wants to do, as he was a solid contributor, especially in that last home stretch of the regular season where after they acquired Jimmy and he was a regular starter, Golden State was like 12-0 for their first 12 games with Moody in the starting lineup. So maybe they don't want to get rid of him. But if there's a player who they really think that they can become better with by including Moody in a Kuminga sign and trade, then I don't think that Mike Dunleavy is going to hesitate to do so, as he has said openly that they are willing to do whatever it takes to complete a trade as long as they believe it makes their team better. So with that being said, comment your number one realistic. I'm talking realistic. Do not comment Giannis Antetokounmpo. Do not comment that the Warriors need to trade for Giannis because it's not happening at this point. So comment your number one realistic Warriors trade target that would likely have to go in a Kuminga sign and trade and could be coupled with some more contracts on the Warriors books as well. But you let me know who that target is in the comments section. All right, before we wrap up here on today's show, I wanted to just highlight this small quote from Bobby Portis, who isn't a Warriors trade target per se, but is potentially a Warriors free agency target around that non-taxpayer mid-level exception, according to reports that we heard from Jake Fisher a little bit last week. Bobby Portis was on FanDuel TV, and he said this about the rumors with Golden State. He said, "My first thought when it comes to these reports is, how do these people know so much?" And honestly, I don't really get that either, because it's all like scuttlebutt and nonsense going around right now. Nobody really has anything concrete when it comes to these, off-season rumor mills. So, Bobby Portis, I totally understand what you're saying there. However, throughout the rest of that little interview that he was on, he did not deny these Warriors free agency rumors. He did not say, "Yeah, I'm not really interested in that place. They're not really interested in me." Like, he made no comment like that whatsoever. So I 100% believe that the Warriors will look to add a player at that non-taxpayer mid-level exception this offseason. I think there's a pretty decent crop of guys who fit that bill. I think Portis is one of them, and we'll see if Golden State ends up pursuing him when free agency opens on June 30th. And that's why you subscribe to the channel. That will do it for today's edition of Warriors Today by Chat Sports, but we will cover every single piece of Warriors news that comes across the desk this offseason. So lock us in, hit that sub button, turn notifications on as well. See you guys on the next one, and as always, let's go Dubs.